what advice would you give someone starting a business?
Profit first, read it, absorb it, apply it. Do all the things that everyone's telling you to do would be what I would say. People that have so much potential go wrong is they just don't do the things they know they should do. Like ultimately that's it. Everyone knows how to lose weight, but it's actually just doing the process of either tracking calories or managing fruit intake or vegetable intake or protein intake or whatever. It's just the doing is the outcome.
Let's just go and see the world and just show them what it really means to live life golden. Yeah, we're golden, baby girl, we're golden.
Jamie Smith, brother, welcome to the potty.
Thanks for having me. It's been a while.
Yeah, I was actually looking at this because I wanted to. I had to look back, and I think you were on in 2019, which was.
I think it was pre-COVID, yeah.
Pre-COVID 2019. And that was a very different time for the podcast.
It was. You actually, with Elite Vitality, gave me an opportunity to present, and then it all just fell in a screaming heap.
Yeah.
COVID's closed everything down. Yeah.
Literally. But yeah, so what I wanted to do is we're probably in a bit of a different space at the moment as it relates to this podcast, right? So I reckon, maybe a year ago, nearly everyone who was listening probably had a fair idea about who you were and your journey. But I think, there's definitely some newcomers that are listening that probably need a bit of need you to cover a little bit about, your journey.
We'll start fresh.
We'll start fresh.
Yeah.
So I'll get you to give yourself a bit of an intro and a little bit about your businesses and then we can kind of start getting stuck into it.
For sure. So my name's Jamie Smith. I own Melbourne Strength Culture and Strength Coach Development. Melbourne Strength Culture is my main baby, so to speak. It's a gym and an online coaching service that's been in operation for 5.5 years now, just coming into our 6th year. And the evolution of that has been, I'd call it almost seasons or phases. I started it quite young at only 23 and really didn't have any idea about anything, which I think a lot of younger entrepreneurs sort of start with, which was a fun journey. But I think the first 2 years I can sort of call one chapter of the business where we were just sort of scrapping around, no real clue what we were doing. And then there was a definite like mindset shift to be like, all right, there's opportunity here to actually make something, create something, build a brand that can probably grow and scale, and started building a team out and all of that. So the first 2 years were not much. And then now it's really starting to take a little bit of a stride and gain some momentum, and we're really starting to have the impact that I know that we can. So that's Melbourne Strength Culture. And then Strength Coach Development it started off as an internship-based thing, which then moved into an online format last year with COVID. And that's online courses for strength coaches, both from a foundational business standpoint, things that I've learned along the way, and just those foundational skill sets of like finance, marketing, understanding sales, retention-based strategies, those sort of things. And that's now rolling and looking to hit next year pretty hard with that. So they're sort of the two things that are driving me right now. Yep.
What do you reckon's been the evolution in your journey, right? So, because you obviously, I think, back to what you said at the start, initially, I don't think I knew I was even running a business for the first 2 years that I had mine, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
and Charlie, who's been there since day one with the gym, we used to sleep at lunchtimes, and it would be like, oh, crazy. Fucking look at all this time we got. We're our own bosses. Yeah. And just have naps and shit. And then after a while, I was just like, we're going nowhere fast. We're doing nothing. But yeah, the evolution, as I said, they're chapters, they're seasons. Like those first 2 years the first year was really just fun. It was exciting. We were new. There was a bit of a buzz. We had a lot of friends in the gym and all that. And then typically those friends sort of left. And then all of a sudden we're scrapping like, all right, we actually need to get leads here. What can we do? We started with content and started that direction. And then we got our first staff member on that wasn't a great fit and ended up leaving. And then we got these 2 new guys on. And when they came on and started, not demanding, but were like expecting to grow with us, that was where it was like, all right, I need to actually remove myself a little bit here and view this for what it could become and sort of put trust in that I can take this thing into the direction that I know it can move. And that was probably the biggest shift for myself, being like the old typical, like not working in the business, on the business, but actually taking the steps. I think a lot of young, I can only really speak for my industry, but a lot of young coaches don't know how to make that shift. Like it doesn't happen too often, especially with like a business like us where we're heavily client focused from a coaching relationship standpoint. It's not group training. It's not any of that. It's like one-on-one online coaching based. Like how do you make that shift? How do you make that transition? And that's really what the last few years have been. Even through COVID, we've been able to grow and expand and move and all of that. But really, it was a mindset change of like, yeah, this thing has legs. And then it's like, well, how do I actually get these legs to move and start running and remove myself from on the coalface and start delegating and growing the team, reinvesting, finance management, all of those sort of things. And that's now where I really call myself. I'm a director. I'm not really a coach anymore at all. So I think I have been successful thus far in making that shift, which has been cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of the mindset, right? Like I feel like a lot of people struggle to take that leap because they're still that technician at heart.
And, for sure.
And the ego drives that, right? It's like, you know, like you want to be the technician. It needs to be done this way. Or like, you know, and I think that's easily one of the things that even for myself struggled with for so long, still do to a certain extent. But obviously that's probably the leaps that you make in business when you start realizing that, you know, you alone and you know, the way you do things and your methodology and these kind of things always has this limit to it. And I think that's I mean, fuck, man, it's probably one of the hardest things to actually master is how to start wearing that different hat, you know, going from that manager to the leader. Yeah,
well, the E-Myth, I think, is the book with those three, like, sort of hats in a business. There's the entrepreneurial hat, the managerial hat, and then the technician hat. Yeah, learning how to navigate. And, like, most, I think, again, young entrepreneurs probably have those hats to a degree, but for myself, I just much preferred those other two. The technician, I can coach, and I've dumped a lot of time and resources and money into developing my coaching skill set. But ultimately, I believe my staff are better coaches. They enjoy it more. They build better relationships. They ultimately just care more about that process than what I do. I was more involved in like, hey, I'm actually enjoying building this, building brand, creating content, running seminars, all of those things, building relationships in the field and stuff. So just identifying, and a lot of it is self-awareness and mindset and all that sort of stuff, but just identifying that if we want to move in those directions, there's certain times where making those decisions and you've got a path in front of you, and sometimes it is a difficult decision to make where you take a little hit on your wage so you can give it to someone else for the time being and hoping that reinvestment takes a good step in 3-6 months' time, and you see it, and then all of a sudden you get a few wins under your belt and that just starts working, and without having those sort of moments and knowing when to pull the trigger, I guess, we wouldn't be where we are now. No way. I would have stifled the business 100%. I had 55 clients, burnt out. At that point, right at the end of that first chapter of those first 2 years, I would have sold the business. I hated it. Absolutely hated it. I was done. We weren't growing because I couldn't take on more clients. We weren't growing because my retention rate sucked because I couldn't give the clients what they wanted. We weren't growing because we weren't putting it into marketing and content and all those areas that have successfully driven us. So I would have killed my own business. I would have sold it at that point, 100%. I was not enjoying it. But then those two new coaches come on, and all of a sudden it's, all right, we can start making this work and moving,
Yeah, 100%. That's probably something that a lot of people go through, right? I think anyone who's self-employed has always gotten to that point where it's like, okay, I don't have much time. I'm making money, but is it really worth the fact that I'm burnt out? I'm grinding. I don't have the time to actually spend, either spending that money or doing other things that I want to do, and you're kind of getting absorbed by the business. What are some of the steps then, right? Or like, what were some of the factors that really were important to taking that leap to that next level, getting to that next level where you could, I know those two coaches come on board, but there's obviously other factors in your ability to make that decision. You talked about one before where it was like maybe reinvesting some capital or taking some capital out of your own wage and potentially putting it towards, staff.
Yeah, well, that would be the first, and this is where finance management is without a doubt the biggest rock. I think we're in business to make money, yes. We're in business to support incomes and staff members, yourself, whatever the direction. But ultimately, we're in business to make money. And if you don't know how to manage the money, as you said, like you were 2 years into a business before you realized it was probably a tax bill or something that smacked you in the face and be like, oh, hang on, what's going on here? That was me. Mine was I was stressed. And again, it was in that period, that first chapter, those first 2 years. I was stressed from a work technician perspective because of my caseload and my mental, emotional resource for that. But I was also stressed from a business perspective because I knew that we were on the limit. We didn't have, I call it oxygen in the business. We didn't have a profit margin because I didn't know what it was. I just had a few bank accounts that just had 1 month there'd be 20,000, the next month there'd be 2,000. I'm like, what's going on? And then my bookkeeper would be, who's my mother would be like, oh, we had to pay Bass. Crazy. Like, see you later. Like, literally just like, what is going on
Johnny
here?
knows what you're talking about.
Yeah, like, and then I used to get anxious because I didn't even know when Bass was taken. So I'd be anxious. I'd be like, why is there so much money in these accounts right now? And then I'd be like, email, like, when's the Bass thing coming? Like, what's going on? Like, when's it go? Like, I was young. I didn't have any clue. And then it's learning like, all right, I like proactively plan for tax. I should be able to also proactively plan for like profit or whatever. And you actually, this is around the time that we started connecting, you recommended the book Profit First for me. And it's still the number one recommendation that I would do from anyone. But literally I read that book, I listened to it. I listened to that book and I couldn't sleep. I was literally making spreadsheets on like, and I was tracking back through previous years' data and be like, oh, we grew this area, my taps at this, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden it almost shone a light of like the direction, literally the direction to go to move forward. And then that was probably my first business, like a business mindset shift where it was all of a sudden like, oh, all right, well, fuck my wage. I'm dumping that down. I'm going to put all that capital back in the business. And then all of a sudden I was less stressed from a finance perspective. I could make those decisions to reinvest in either staff members or like little bits of equipment. Like we bought cameras, we bought stuff to make our content better. Like all of those decisions all of a sudden were a lot easier to make because I knew that the profit margin of 14% was, I can spend that now, but in 3 weeks' time, most of that's going to come back. So it was fine. So finance is definitely the first. That was the first sort of lens that I viewed the growth with, without a doubt. And then it became, in that transition period, managing and learning how to manage different personalities that were growing within the team, starting to identify ways in which I could leverage the facility a little bit better. We got a physio in to subcontract, like just little steps like that where I could start to view the whole thing as for what it was. It wasn't just me and a friend as a coaching business. It was a full-blown business now that we could leverage different things and it's only just grown more and more from that point. Yeah. I
think the biggest shift, right, is like when you realize that, because like, you know, you hear the term profit, right? And profit first, even to an extent, is you know, it allows you to see what profit or kind of identify profit, right? But I think once you start to realize that profit is also working capital, right? And it's like, you know, that's where you can start to go, well, how do I actually spend this? Where do we need the most, you know, where do I need to allocate this into the business because it's a weakness or we need to improve or this is our target and our goal or this is the overarching strategy. And when you start to, I mean, that's the shift I see in people, right? Is that when people stop looking at profit as their wage or what they take home and start looking at profit as working capital because they're already paying themselves just maybe the minimum to live, right? And you can really start to get, because money is the greatest form of power in the world.
Well, it's freedom. You can really make you can make whatever decisions you want with it. Yeah,
it's the greatest form of energy, right? When we talk about transfer of energy, right? Money's the greatest.
Yeah, without
right? It has the most power. And I think once you start to realize that and you start to make decisions with that at the front of your mind, that's when it all changes. Because that's when growth really starts to happen. And I think, you know, the difference or the kind of concept of margins and growth, right? That I can sometimes lower my margins to increase growth because I'm going to get that capital and I'm going to invest it into the thing that's going to get me that growth, or I can pull back because we probably need some more oxygen. We need to build that, right?
We're close.
That's probably the biggest shift I see. When I see a business owner who makes that turn, that's the thing I'm paying attention to. I go, okay, do they understand this yet? Are they really making decisions with this at the front of the mind? Or are they still in this scarce mindset where they're kind of hodling and they're like, you know.
And again, it comes back like with that technician hat, it's all of your work is a direct monetary transaction, really. Like, I get 3 more clients, I make an extra $150 a week or whatever the hell it works out to be. But as soon as you remove yourself, or I felt as soon as I removed myself from that technician position, all of a sudden it was my hours didn't have a direct monetary value. You taught me how to calculate my monetary value, and I realized how underpaid I was, but in reality, I think that's just fine. But moving and making that transition away from a technician into more of those managerial things where your time doesn't directly correlate to a monetary income or revenue for the business, but really it's potential for you to actually grow and scale and all of that, which is definitely what I've experienced even throughout the COVID period. But in the last 3 years, as I started that next phase of my business and my evolution as a business owner or an entrepreneur, whatever you want to call it, it's understanding those transition periods and those transition points. And it all started with finance management. Like, without a doubt, that was the biggest rock for myself.
Yeah, man, it's so important. What about some other factors then, right? So what else would you attribute to that taking of the next step?
So there was I used to view, so after that first 2 years, in the next, probably just before COVID started, so there's probably like an 18-month period there where I was starting that transition out of that technical model or technician model, and then starting to work into more managerial positions and building the team. There was probably a period there where I actually viewed the facility itself as a bit of a burden. We were growing online a lot. Our content was driving online clients and online sales and all of that sort of stuff. We were doing seminars, and the facility itself was an opportunity for that, but we actually started doing them. Like, we did some in Sydney, we did some in Queensland, we went back to Sydney again, and there was all these opportunities for us to make money and expand our brand outside of Victoria, or the direct 5-kilometre radius or 10-kilometre radius that we can probably impact with the facility. And I actually viewed the facility as a burden. I saw these online brands growing and these online coaches and their teams growing, and I was like, oh, man, if I didn't have this $100,000 problem, and I actually viewed it as that, like it's a problem. Like, we don't need to be here. The clients that come in, they weren't exactly all of our clients, and our online space has actually grown further now. But again, a conversation with yourself, and you started like leveraging or over-investing in like post-purchase or like your facility itself or whatever. Like, I started to view, all right, well, it might be a burden currently, but how can I make this thing more profitable in and of itself? Almost view it as a separate entity within the business. How can I make this home of ours and really create a profitable section of the business? We're dominating in an online space. Our coaches are growing and expanding and all of that sort of stuff. But how can I make this part of the business more profitable and all of that? And that was the decision then to, like, all right, well, subcontracting, we can do stuff there, or we can offer. We changed our whole in-person coaching model, to a different coaching model that allowed it to be a little bit more on the commercial space where you could sign up as a gym member, but it actually opened up. And since making that decision, our membership skyrocketed. And then all of a sudden the gym was more pumping, and then it was a better environment, and then that fed into everything else. And it was a bit of a mindset shift that I was probably just a bit woe is me, even having a gym, as stupid as that sounds. I had a cool facility, but I didn't know how to take advantage of it, really. And again, important conversation, pivotal conversations, if you will, if you wish. Those pivotal conversations and really just actioning those and creating those steps and identifying ways in which I could make those small changes to our model or small changes to our facility that really opened up a whole lot more opportunity for us. That was probably the next thing, which then led into moving facilities. And then that's the whole, now we're in the next chapter, I would say, which,
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot there, right? And I think you've been really good. You've been a really good business owner. You know what I mean? Like, because it's like these exist, right? All of these concepts exist, but the difference is who can navigate, who can understand how to take this framework and actually apply it. And it's interesting, right? Because like, I reckon 90% of people see that situation that you were in, right? Where it's like online's growing, you know, we've got a space, you know, we've got this space that is bringing revenue, but we're only looking at it for its utility, right? And I think that's why I almost cross it over to NFTs, right? Because people really only see NFTs for what their utility is. Like, it's a JPEG, right? But really, it's the things in life that we don't see or we can't tangibly hold that usually create the most value, right? Like, so like brand. Brand is the asset that nobody can put a price on, or you probably can now with NFTs and social tokens and stuff, but nobody can put a price on it. But it's the thing that it's the gift that keeps on giving.
It's the most valuable asset without being a true monetary asset.
Exactly, right? And I almost think of it like that, right? It's like, you know, a facility. It's like, well, you know, this facility here, we don't, you know, like the studio we're in, we don't directly make money from it, right? Like we don't run a service in here. We don't do any of that. But it's so important to kind of the overall growth of the company. It's so important to what we do. And I think it's the same thing, right? Like Amazon, right? It's like Amazon did it backwards. Like they had the online business and now they're building stores. And it's like they're doing that because it's a brand move, right? Like Tesla, they've got showrooms, but you can't buy the car in the showroom.
Yeah, they're at Chadstone.
Yeah. It's like it's brand, and it's, you know, I think I often think like that's where most people struggle to see, and I think that's probably a good point here, is that, like, you know, as a business owner, you're going to have these different frameworks, and this is why I like to teach fundamental business, because it, you know, that's what, you know, if I look at, like, it's been crazy to see what you've done, but it's like you've just been really good at taking that concept and making your own and going boom, and then being able to navigate, right? And I think that's really cool to see, because, you know, like you said, it's all it was a change in perception with, okay, well, we've got this facility, right? But now what does this facility become? You know, what does it represent to us? And you know, you can probably see that with the moves that you've made across the journey. Yeah.
It literally, and already we're feeling it. Like we moved, we took an extra month. I want to say mid-August. We got 8 days open. Grand launch, let's go, new facility. I dumped a whole bunch of money in the fit out. We bought all this new equipment. We've soundproofed the walls. It's like a carpeted office in there. It shouldn't be a gym. Like, it literally, if there's no one in there, it feels like comforting and warm. And like, it's incredible, this place. And then 8 days, and then we got shut again. We've been closed for 3 months, but even in this, or I don't even know what it was, whatever this recent long lockdown was, we've been shut. But even in that period, the team has felt that move has represented like our next chapter, and it is now, it's completely opposite. Where I used to view the physical space as a burden, it is literally, the physical space is the fire now. It's like, we've got this sick facility. We've got something that no one else in Australia currently has. We have an opportunity to leverage this thing and grow and create better content and have better seminars. Our internship program can run in its own classroom space. We've got a studio with glass walls. They were already in there, but this glass-walled studio that's crazy. And I'm thinking podcast. We've got to get the podcast going. And all of a sudden, it's just flipped on its head. It's like, well, all of a sudden, our HQ is the Tinder that's fucking going to just light us up and open up that next phase of the business. And I really do feel it. And even not being able to be there for 8 weeks, we've probably only been back in there for a month in terms of staff. Our members aren't. But even this 3-month period, like, it's new air for us. It's a new feeling. It's exciting. And again, it was the mindset shift of like, no, I need to make this place. And it's the crew guys, actually, were two people that inspired me for this. But the crew team, which is a little bit more of a commercial group-based setting gym out in the West, and I think they're moving to their second facility now. But they did it. They made their fucking gym like an art studio. There's like LeBron James, like a 10-meter LeBron James on the wall, and like Kendall Jenner and shit. I'm like, man,
Kendall Jenner's wild when you think about it. Like, it's like, why the fuck is she on a gym wall?
It doesn't matter.
But it works.
It doesn't matter. Like, that's their brand, and there's nothing like it. And I viewed them, and I looked at them, and I looked at my first space, and I was like, we've got white walls and a fucking basketball ring in the corner. Like, it's not different to anything else. Like, how do I make this different? All right, well, let's see. All right. And that's where, like, all of the little design, we got a designer in to help us. We made our logo the feature wall. So every single photo that's taken in that gym, and it's set up in a direction where it doesn't matter where you set your camera up, you're catching the feature wall. It's in every photo. It's in every video. You can't get away from it. The logo's 2.5 meters high and wide. Like, it's fucking ginormous. Yeah. And, like, so it just completely flipped and now I already feel it, like it's going to take us to that next level, and it's really opened up a whole bunch of opportunities because we can sort of leverage the space now, partnerships with brands, better content creation. We've brought in a media guy now and in a more permanent role, and we can film, and the audio is crazy. Like, that even in a step in and of itself is great for us. Just like little things that, yeah, again, it was just a mindset shift, just literally.
So how do you, because I mean, like, I get it, right? I get it. But how do you, like, because you guys, to be honest, like, you guys had a good brand before you made these moves and before you started to think this way, right? So there was already some stuff working. I think you had a great team, right? And you guys knew where you were going. And, yourself, obviously, I think, pioneered a lot of that early days, but how do you view this from now on, like the progress and kind of the methodology and like, how do you put this into a framework? Do you see it in a certain way now where you're like, cool, we need to kind of, it's like almost like if we're looking at this in cycles of growth, like economic cycles almost, like, how do you
That's
view
literally
this?
what it is. It has been. They've, as I said at the very start, they're literally chapters of, like, how we've And this COVID period is a chapter in and of itself, and how we managed to navigate that. Like, yeah, we had an online business, but the online business got shot in half as well, because just gyms all across Australia got hit, employment got hit, everyone was on JobKeeper. Like, it trickles down, and even if you've got a strong online business, you're going to get slammed. But in terms of, like, viewing this, I do view it in cycles. I view it as like, you could sort of view it in more like a macro, not goal setting. It's not so much that we set goals and it's like, how do we break that down, and, like, what are the actionable steps to get there? But it's just directional. It's team building in a direction is sort of what I would say. And we're all on the same page right now, where it's like, content is, I think, in terms of brand development, and we see a hole in the Australian market. It's definitely been taken advantage of on the global market, especially from American brands, but there's no one in Australia right now that's sort of consumed that sort of, it's fun, but it's still smart training. It's fun, but smart training, personality driven, all of that sort of stuff. And the only way we can get that through is video content. So we're just full investment into video, and that's the facility and all that, and hiring the media guy. But I view it as, like, in terms of, like, a cycle perspective, is
there a framework in the cycle? Like, do you go like, okay, we need to invest in brand, we need to generate the capital to reinvest into the brand to make the customer happy? Like, is there a way that, like, are you picking up patterns with this?
I say I would, yeah. At a personal level, I would, as more of, like, a management position, I would. But a lot of the time, as I was sort of getting around the long way, the staff, for it to work, all of us have to sort of believe in it. And it doesn't really matter if I come in and say, oh, we're bringing in a new service, it's going to be here in our tiered system and it's going to be this much, but none of the guys are that interested in it and all of that. Like, it just doesn't, it's not going to get legs, it's not going to move forward, it's just not going to work. So yeah, I can see the direction that we want to move, but it's ensuring that the staff want to go there with me. And I think initially, and it's been a big shift from our content and what we were creating in content, I really like the hyper-technical stuff from a coaching perspective, like getting real nitty-gritty in anatomy and all of that. And that was the initial sort of growth for us, because no one was really talking about it in Australia when I started. But then all of a sudden I got the other guys on and they didn't give a shit about it. And it was like, I could make content and I can make my own personal content, but if that's the strategy we're going, these guys aren't going to be happy with that. So it's like, all right, well, how can we manage their input and their personalities into what we're doing from a brand perspective or whatever? So it's always comes back to team management, team. The team is what makes it possible. Like, yeah, I can have the thought and I can be a little bit more of the leader of the team. But ultimately there's no point in me leading if it's a direction that the staff and the team don't want to go. And because we are a small group, we can make
agile.
Yeah, we can make very quick decisions in directional changes and that. But again, and I'm just rambling now, but if we go back to like the finance stuff, without having that understanding of finance, I wouldn't be able to make the decisions I make. Like without having capital in the business that I know is there, that I can just pull the trigger on hiring a media guy for X amount of hours per week, and it's not a risk at all. Like we can just do it. Fuck it, let's go. Let's give this guy a chance. Let's see what happens. Like. Yeah.
I think that's the difference. I mean, from a finance perspective, right? It's like when you got money there, it's like it's weird. Like more opportunities just come to you,
of
right?
course,
It's like it's probably because you're just thinking straight for once. Like I remember, like I can think back to when I was fucking living off like week to week and shit. Like you're just always under fucking stress and shit. But I guess from my perspective, I want to dive in because I know that like this is people want to understand because like it's very easy to say team management, right? But it's like I see you guys as a very close-knit team, and I would say that a lot of the decisions that you guys make are driven from a team perspective, right? So it's like everyone's bringing ideas in, we agree on something, and then we look at how do we actually go away and execute this. But from your perspective as a leader, right, how do you create that kind of environment? Like what do you, like, is there certain meetings you run? Is there, or is there a certain structure to the meetings, or, do you do quarterly planning? Like how do you, like what's the technical side of it?
Yeah, for sure. We have
and culture as well. Like what are the things you do from a culture? Is that just woven into the whole thing?
I'll say it off air. There was one event that definitely drove the cultural stuff, but I'm going to leave it off air for now, and I might tell you. Come back in a couple of years when I got a bit more confidence to say what I want in front of my parents, particularly. But,
okay, yeah.
The decision making, one thing that I would say in those earlier phases where, particularly when I picked up the current team that we've got, which is 3 full-time coaches, but before the 2 boys were full-time, they were just sort of on like subcontracting roles and all of that. There was no communication within the team. I think that's probably the biggest thing. And it's not so much communication from like we're going to be checking in every Tuesday at this time and like show me what you've done and all of that sort of stuff. But there was just no open, like these are the directional steps that we're trying to take over the next 3 to 6 months. Like that's sort of the direction we want to go. There was just no transparency in that from a management perspective because I didn't know how to manage or lead in that perspective. So open communication chains is probably going to be the biggest thing, and having a safe space to float ideas around. And that sort of just comes from me, lead from the front. Like I throw ideas out there and I'm like, this might not work, and half the time they don't work. But as long as they're aware of like that decision-making process and that communication is transparent, it can sort of roll forward openly and freely. So that would be the first thing. But we definitely, prior to the communication, we had no team meetings. There was nothing. We have one on every Monday to set the week up, where we discuss like clients, like anyone that we call them on the ropes, anyone that's sort of lagging in check-ins or anything like that. Like most of our retention-based stuff happens on that Monday. We do a thing called OKRs when we're up to it. We don't always run them, but sometimes we're like, oh, fuck it, let's run OKRs for a
great book.
Yeah, it is a good book, yeah. And it's an objective way for you to break things down, and you can sort of working in that direction as one. I think for myself, from a management perspective, in terms of the staff, was learning how to manage different personalities. Not everyone's like me. Not everyone's like you. Not everyone is just the head down. Ooh, that echoed. My apologies.
You're right.
But not everyone is the head down, just run through a wall. Fuck it, we're going that way, and follow me if you want. So learning how to manage different personalities, how you could probably improve in that. You can start to learn personality types. I read up on personality types. I didn't make my staff undertake the different quizzes and stuff, but I learnt different things, so I could see, all right, if that person's responding in an emotional way with those sort of inputs and outputs. Like maybe they would respond better with this communication strategy, where one of my staff members, I can light a fire up and just be like, hey man, we've got 2 weeks, let's get it done. Where the other one, I'm like, all right, I've almost got to make it his idea to create that process and really build it in together. But learning how to manage the different personality types, I think, has been a big step. And probably the only way that we successfully navigated COVID was based off that, because all of a sudden, everyone was operating at a more like Maslow's hierarchy. Everyone just came down. Everyone was just like, oh, where's my job at? Where's my money at? Am I going to be able to pay rent? Especially in the early days, it got very emotional very quickly.
Yep.
And the only way that I would say that I was able to manage that was, and I had a lot of support, but also understanding different personalities and how we can probably set goals or set strategies to navigate those. Again, especially the first probably 6 to 9 months of COVID, before it almost, from a business perspective, especially in our industry, it just became a joke. We're like, if we're shut, we're shut. It's just going to just keep happening until we get to where we are now, thankfully. But that would be another thing. So from a technical standpoint, from a management perspective, personality types, I think, is probably one of the biggest things. Trying to create open forms of communication. They don't have to be like meetings and stuff, but just being there and you showing transparency will get transparency from your staff. And it just so happens, and I don't know if this is by a decision on our part when we're hiring, but we're all very similar. Like we're the boys, man. We call ourselves the boys. Like it's a boys club. And it is. It's the one consistent feedback that we get. Oh, it's just a fucking boys club. But also, yeah, that's what sort of makes it possible.
Yeah, it makes it work.
Yeah, and we're always like, oh, do we need to change this? Do we change our branding to be a little bit? And it's just, we always just come back to, this is what's got us. And this ultimately is what allows us to have fun in what we're doing. And I think enjoyment for all of us is really important. And especially for myself, if I'm not laughing, I don't want to be there. Like, it's not a good time. So our personalities just, they mesh well.
The space, because you can, it's such an interesting dynamic, right? Because the team can be functioning so cohesively, and then you put one node in that's not cohesive, and it just fucking everything shatters, right?
Yeah. Well, you feel it from like a gym perspective. You can even get it from members. You get a couple members that are in there that don't align with the culture, as you said, or align with the core values of what you're creating, and the greater community, like the herd. We call it the herd. And you can damage the herd very quickly. Like, you can really have a sour impact on that experience, not just for the people. All of a sudden, the staff now feel a little resentful to people, and then their experience on the gym floor is a little bit different. Like, it doesn't take much to really, infiltrate a really cohesive unit. And like values and stuff obviously drive that. But being aware of your values probably drives that more, and actioning your values drives it even further. It's not so much like on a piece of paper, circle like your key drivers of like.
It's not just words on a wall.
Yeah,
right?
that's not our strategy. It's self-awareness driven of like understanding what is important to us. What is the brand that we want to create? What makes us cohesive? Like, what are all those, like, trying to build awareness around that. That's the Gary Vee sort of self-awareness is a superpower. It fucking is. Like, until you can remove yourself, third person, view situations, view relationships, view your work, view your leisure, view everything. Like, until you can remove yourself and view it for what it is, like, you're going to struggle because everything's just blurred by ego in front of you. Like, lenses that are in front of you that are just distilling every single moment in your life. So self-awareness would probably be another big thing there. I don't even know where it fits in the conversation, but that would probably be another big factor.
It's funny, man. Like, I went through this phase where I was fucking super spiritual, like probably because I needed it. I was probably just fucking meddled, right? But I did silent retreats and shit.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, like full on. Yeah. Like, and it fucking changed my life, like 100%. But because you, for me, was my mechanism to find self-awareness. You know what I mean? Yeah. And truly learn where my biases were. But it's funny, like, I come back and I just thought it was such a big piece of the puzzle of business, but always struggled. It's like, I don't want to be that fucking spiritual dude who's teaching spirituality in business. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
But I think it is one of those things that it's hard to teach. Like you shouldn't want to teach self-awareness. Someone almost has to find it.
Yeah, well, Angus Bradley actually, he just the way he creates Instagram, and everyone listening to this won't have a clue who I'm talking about, but he's a coach from Queensland who just, I think he studied journalism, so he knows how to write in a way that very quickly makes an impact, and but he created this thing where it's like critical thinking. You can't teach it. You can't teach someone to be critical of situations, and it's just in them. And there'll be an event through which it just smacks them in the face, and all of a sudden they start to, yeah, exactly. I feel like that's similar to self-awareness in that
they're probably the same fucking thing.
Yeah, they probably are stem from they would be. There would be a lot of commonalities between them. But from a self-awareness perspective, it's not like, you can go meditation. Like I don't feel like it's less now, but 5 years ago or 3 years ago, everyone was meditate this, meditate that. Like Sam Harris was flying and making a big impact, and everyone was meditating. It's like, yeah, but the process, it's probably an experience thing more than anything, where once you feel that you've made a self-aware decision, all of a sudden it's like, that was actually kind of smart, and and then sometimes you make what would be the opposite? Like just an irrational decision where you've just gone and done something out of emotion. Yeah. You've just gone out of emotion and anger or whatever, passion in the moment, and then you turn around like, what the fuck was I doing that for? Like you need a few of those to sort of smack you around a bit, and then all of a sudden, and for me it was business. So for you it was like a self-awareness sort of spiritual. For me it was business. It was that end of that first chapter, 2 years in, like what the fuck is going on here? Why is there no money? Why am I working more than I ever have? Why am I more stressed? Why am I unhappy? All of that built into what do I need to change to make this thing work.
Yeah.
And then.
It's funny you say that. Like mine was definitely mental health issues.
Yeah.
Just anxiety and shit. Like and it was, it was only once I realized, it was a mixture of going on that spiritual journey, right, where I was like, I was meditating, but for me, it was not what happened during the meditation. It was the shit that I was realizing outside of the meditation from some of those things, right? But it was like, fuck, and I think it was the trauma that I got from that kicked me into gear. And that's what made me start to really, okay, cool, metacognition, get out of the brain, get out of the brain, right? And view it. But yeah, definitely, man. It's interesting. And I think that's all the things you've mentioned is that's the step, right? That's the fucking step.
Well, and I said at the start, it literally is just a mindset perspective. And I think like the biggest growth, and I think a lot of people would probably find commonalities with their own life with this, but your biggest growth periods or your biggest steps and it doesn't even have to be objective growth from like a top line revenue or whatever the hell, but like your biggest growth, they quite often come from like a hotbed of events or conversations or there's just a couple little triggers that change the way you think. They change the way you perceive things. They change your vantage point. They change your attitude in you get rid of friendship groups. Like that was previous to business, but that was something that I had to go through where I just, every time I'd hang out with this group of people, it wasn't that I had a bad time. I'd just come home and be like, that's not me. Like, I don't want to be in those situations. Like, yeah, they're fun and going out and doing who knows what. I know, but I'd come home and on the Tuesday or the Wednesday, I'd just be like, why did I do that again? Like,
100%.
It's just, it was fun, but it's not moving me in the direction I want to go. Like it's always just comes back to there's always a couple little events, a couple conversations with a mentor or even with yourself or whatever that really spur those mindset shifts, those perception shifts that get you into those next phases. And I think business is just an extrapolation of yourself. I think any objective outcome is really your career, your relationships and all of that. They really just mirrors of what is going on inside of you and all of that. And again, just that self-awareness key, that self-awareness factor is massive. Gary Vee is correct that it is a superpower. We all have it, just whether or not you're aware of it currently, you can build it and it opens doors. It really does. Mentally and in life, it opens doors.
Yeah, amen. So I guess the next question for me is more around, and this, you can fucking say no to, like not no, but like you can say like, no, it's the same thing. Like, but what do you view is, because we're talking about these cycles, right? What do you see for the future, right? Are you identifying the next cycle, and is it similar to the current cycle, or is it, like what's next? What's the next move? What are the next things? What are you identifying?
Yeah, I think we're in the baby steps of it, which is the new facility. I really do think, as I said, we moved in August. We're recording, I don't know when you throw this up, but we're pretty much recording this mid-October. So we've only really been there for a couple months, but really we haven't opened it yet because we were open for 8 days. So I think that is the next cycle, and it's all those things why I made those decisions to move to that place and fit it out the way it is, and where I think our growth can happen in that facility. I think that is the next cycle for us. I've alluded to it. I think content, getting our personalities out more, like throwing that in people's faces, I think that's the start of that, building that sort of brand, starting to add layers to our brand. It's no longer just like Melbourne Strength Culture. Like, who are the guys in front of it? We don't have to be a faceless brand. We never were, but we really don't want to be a faceless brand. I want you to know every single staff member. I want if you consume our content, even without the intention of purchasing anything, you know us on almost like a intimate level. Like, the funny things that we're doing. You know that Charlie goes down this strategy, or I'm doing this at the time. Like, we want that narrative built into what we're doing. So I think that really is the next phase of, and that's the foundation of it. What that means for us from a business perspective, I think we can start to, as I said, like partnerships. I think that's a really good opportunity. We've got one in the pipeline that we're just waiting to sign the thing, and then we'll throw that open. But I think all of that is open to us now, and the brand is in a position where we can start to build networks and take those next steps and try to solidify ourselves as a national brand, not just a Victorian-based. And yeah, all of it just leverages off the facility now. So that's sort of the next phase. For myself, from a business management perspective, it's really just solidifying the team. I'd like to take another coach on, just because I feel like we're going to need it.
For anyone listening.
Yeah. We have our eyes now. Yeah, we know who we're looking for.
You know who you are.
Like we're starting the discussion of like sponsoring athletes and stuff. We've pretty much got our first one locked in, which will be, I think, a really cool opportunity for us to grow and target slightly different markets. So really, yeah, it's just trying to expand and really just get the tentacles out there a little bit more is probably what we're looking at. But yeah, we're in it now. We're in the start of it. We're in the infancy of it with the move, without a doubt.
It's exciting, man.
It is. I'm pumped. I haven't felt, obviously COVID put me in a depression spiral 100%. Stopped training, started eating fucking like a 2-year-old again, a teenager, like just wasn't a good space. Also, my partner had some health-related stuff that made a lot of very mature conversations probably accelerate. But I really do, and again, it's just, the image is the new facility, but it represents so much more of like, it really is a new opportunity. It's new growth. I'm no longer a technician anymore. I'm literally just managerial, entrepreneurial now. They're the only hats that I need to wear. What are the potential? What's that potential for us to grow and to move forward? And as I said, the facility is but it means so much. So it really is a fresh start. It's feeling good.
It's exciting. Yeah. I'm pumped to see what happens.
Yeah, we're good.
So what about for yourself now, like on a personal level? I'm actually interested more to have this conversation with you, whether it's fucking recorded or not. But it's like, how are you seeing the world now? What's changing for you? Like obviously the way you view business, but the finance, how are you seeing the world right now? What's changing? What's going on? Like where, and also on a personal, like where do you see yourself in 5 years? Like what's changing? Sure. How are you trying to navigate different areas and so on? One
thing that I have, I've made the decision that I want to move down, and we were talking off air about the Radio Dogs, which is like it's not even a passion project. It's just something that I wanted to do. I wouldn't say I'm passionate about it, but it's just something it's a set of dice I just wanted to roll, which is just with a childhood friend from school who's a doctor, and we've always had funny conversations and we've just grown up together. It's like, why not just put it out there? But part of that is I want to start to build my own personal brand a little bit more. And yeah, it's connected obviously heavily to Melbourne Strength Culture and what I do with the business. But I think the value in showing a little bit more of myself and building, whether it's content or just being a little bit more transparent. That's something that I do want to do from a personal perspective. For myself as well, I really like business finance. I'm really starting to understand personal finance as well, and understanding where I can move my personal money, how I can leverage that a little bit more. Like we bought the facility that we've moved into under a separate entity, and just learning how to leverage that against the business, which then ultimately helps me and diversify my profile or my portfolio, so to speak. I do enjoy all of that. I enjoy shares. I love your Investors podcast. Those sort of things are important to me, not from an ego perspective of like making more money, but I just really enjoy the process of learning and understanding that. I'm only just starting to look into cryptos and NFTs.
I was watching the dogs. I was watching the clip on the dogs, and I was like, "Hey man, are you in Bitcoin?"
Because I just checked it that morning. It was up 5% or something. I was like, "Holy shit!"
Yeah.
Like it's so volatile, but I still don't understand all the application. Like I'm really just entry level in it. I do have some money in there, but that's more stuff I want to learn about from a personal perspective. But yeah, it's where do I see the? Oh, you go.
I mean, I guess there's a bit of a fucking shit question by me, right? But I think more of it, like, I guess I'm interested to see you, like, personally, right? Because like I can kind of see you, like, in the way that you're talking and so on. You're kind of like, yeah, I feel like I'm taking that next level on a personal journey, right? Like you said, you mentioned obviously having talks with your partner, and these, we're kind of at that age now,
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
And there's a lot of, like, because I feel like the same thing. It's like, I feel like I'm actually entering a new phase or chapter, as you mentioned, right? And it's like that chapter is like, okay, well,
how does this
not
look?
only am I just fucking gunslinging this business to like this level, right? And like, just like, I feel like that was my last phase, and it's like, you're just kind of like fucking all in here, and you just kind of like fucking whatever it takes, and like, it's kind of just happening. And now I'm like, okay, well, same thing. It's like, I feel like I'm entering the next phase where it's like, okay, personal finance and preparing for the future and maturity in a sense.
Maturity, it literally is. Like, and it's one of the things I'm thankful for, is starting the business so young and giving myself so much time to find our direction. Like I literally, again, those first 2 years were a fucking shambles. If I did that at 29 into 31, game over. Like I'm probably at that point where I'm like, do I take that next lease option? I'd probably be like, nah, fuck it. I'm not doing this anymore. But because I was 25 at the time, I was fucking paying $300 rent or whatever I was paying, and I didn't really have much expenses. I was just like, oh, fuck it. Why not? Let's just keep going. Put the head down again for another 18 months, and if I come out the other end, I'll come out the other end. So I'm thankful for that, because I am, where my partner and I, it has accelerated just because of the health stuff. That as I said, those conversations and having children and all that is really on the near horizon if everything does go to plan. So I think part of it and one of the reasons why I want to understand personal finance more, but part of it is definitely being able to step back from work. Like, yeah, maybe working 3 days a week for a period, or being able to, like, I'm at that point now where I don't really need to be in the business at all. Like, I can literally just work from home if I wanted to. I don't have to go in. Like, I want to film content, so I'm going in, but I don't have to be there. So like, that opens up that door for children to be less of not a burden, but to be less of an impact onto the directions that I want to do from a business perspective. So, I'm in, from a business perspective, we're in a new phase, but also my life is starting to move into that more maturity thing. And I just want to have a comfortable life. So however we could do that, however I can leverage this business and my other online education stuff, which we haven't talked about, but we don't need to talk about it. If I can utilize those and build them to a point where I can really work when I want to work and still have a big impact on the industry and really still drive the staff, and they can make more money and they can feel more reward and feel growth and have those opportunities to expand and be entrepreneurial within the business itself, like, I'm happy. So it's really just setting things up to do that.
That's one thing I reckon with yourself, like I've definitely noticed, is you truly do want the best for your team.
I wouldn't do it without them. I wouldn't. We had one of the fucking 2-week blocks that Melbourne got where we could go to bars. We went
I think you're on school holidays, but
oh man, like it's been a joke. One of those little windows where Dan Andrews decided to let us go out. We went to a bar with everyone. It was for my birthday.
Isn't it fucked that that's what we're saying? Isn't it fucked? Like Dad said, we've been in this thing for that fucking long.
I'm so
that it's like, like fucking, it's normal. It's normal to go outside. That's fucked.
But it was my birthday. It was actually, we went to Richmond, and like the first 4 people I invited, my staff members, like I wouldn't do it without them. Like it's not possible. The team is everything. And like, right now we're a small team. We just brought the media in, but he's a direct fit. There's no problems there at all. But even this sponsored athlete, like we don't want to be a company that sponsors 30 athletes. We want to build a relationship with 1 or 2, like, and build a relationship, like get them involved, like fly them to Melbourne, like do content with them. Like that's the direction we want to go with it. So even like the sponsored athlete, we're thinking, all right, does this guy fit? Like what, like we've made sure he's had 2 conversations on the phone with 2 of the staff. Like everything is, if it's not adding to us, like we don't fucking want you here. We'll work it out without you. Like, so yeah, the team is everything, and I want them to feel secure in that they can grow with the brand and with the business, and I will endeavour to ensure that is always possible, because there really isn't a lot of opportunity. Like I hire the staff, which is not really typical for our industry in Australia. I never want
that's an important piece.
Yeah, like I don't want subcontractors.
Yeah.
Like I want to have the conversation of I want you in this. Like 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Like I want us to retire together at 50. Like let's build this fucking thing. Let's see what we can do with it for 20 years and just see where we end up. Like it's really important to me, and I made that decision at the very start. I don't want and I want to lead by, and it's actually really cool because I now have a lot of conversations with businesses that are growing in our space, whether or not they're getting facilities or whatever, and it always comes around to hiring. Like, are they contracting? What are the benefits that you get? Like, do you have bonus structures in place? All of these conversations. I had 3 of them last week with teams that are growing, and it's such a refreshing moment to see that that's now being reflected back, where they're like, no, I like the way you do it. I love that you hire, like you actually, they're employed. They get super. They get sick leave. They can go on a holiday and not have to worry about it. Like it's so important to me, like incredibly important. It's how I would want to be treated if I was working for someone. Yeah.
100%. It's something, I mean, even just from a tactical, strategic perspective, I'm in a pretty lucky position. I get to work with a lot of business owners, and I get to see what's working, what's not working. I think it's an absolute necessity. Your number one goal, even in our industry, when it's not common, should be to get as many of your employees across that line.
Yep.
And that's how you build, because the return on investment you get for the money invested. So let's just talk about per dollar spent is fucking tenfold.
Massive.
It's ridiculous, right? So because but you need to look at it that way. You know, you can't just look at it as I'm spending this and that's an expense. We need to look at what's the return I'm getting on that. And when you, because it's weird, it's like a relationship thing, right? It's like when you invest in someone and you provide security, it's a Maslow's hierarchy thing. You provide that security for them. It's reciprocation. It's inbuilt into us as humans from a psychological perspective to reciprocate.
Yeah, 100%. And it is. It literally, from my experience, that's providing the environment to allow them creative freedom in how they want to grow and develop in their career comes back tenfold, because all of a sudden they add layers to what we can do. They think of ideas, and instead of being like for them a scarce mindset of like, I've got this thing, maybe I could do it myself. No, like this adds to these guys. Let's bring it all in. Like it really is a
trust.
It's, and I don't think, in fact, I would go as far to say you cannot make it as a subcontractor or as a trying to build a team. If you've just got a team of subbies underneath you, I think.
It's hard, man. It's
so
a revolving door.
Yeah, it's so easy for them to just be like, I'm on a good thing, I can just leave and whatever. Like you want to let them. It's growth. It's really, that's the biggest thing that I've found in managing employees is there should be layers to their growth where they can grow alongside the business. I don't ever want them to feel a cap of what they can earn or how many people they can manage or just become a technician. Like if they want to become managerial within it, or even if they want to become entrepreneurial in it, like I want them to feel that freedom and that I will support them and let them go and push. But again, it just feeds into itself. It literally becomes this just picks up momentum. Yeah. Crazy. And we're only like 2-3 years in now, and I can feel it with this move, and we feel like a slingshot. COVID's just fucking holding us. Just Dan Andrews too, but
literally
holding us, and then he's just it's going to happen. I can feel it.
Crazy.
Yeah. All
right, so we're going to dive into the segment Quickfire.
Yep.
And basically this is like short, sharp questions that we look to bring an abundant amount of value from, right? But it's personal to you. It's what you think. And it's fun. It's quick and it's fun. That's we like to finish on that note because it's quite long-winded podcasting, right?
Yeah.
So question number 1 for you is, who's your role model in business and why?
Well, I said this off air, but I can't have one. So I'm going to rapid fire you just as fast as you're rapid firing me. I'm going to throw some down. My parents, 100%, without a doubt. My parents, my dad was a builder and their mum had built other businesses prior to then going on board with dad, and they did residential properties. And that's particularly my mother is where I've learned a lot of the ways in which I analyze things. And so without a doubt, but that doesn't really help the listeners, so I'll go some other places. You would 100%, without a doubt. And it's not from a mentor perspective, but you're somebody that I can come to with, not a dilemma, but it's, hey man, this is sort of what we're feeling, and it's always good feedback. And having those people in your arsenal to speak to or have a pivotal conversation with is important. So you would 100%. And some of the biggest changes that we've made or I've made that's shifted those key mindset decisions have been conversations directly with you. I think Gary Vee, in the way in which he approaches things, I think is...
he's always ahead of time.
Yeah, I don't know, man. He's got some secrets. He's got some sauce there that he just...
you know what I reckon, bro? There's just some people that... There's people that
gets it.
There's people that predict, right? And then there's people that just fucking make it happen.
Yeah.
It's like, no one really can predict the future. The people that are right are just the ones that pioneer whatever's happening, like, and yeah, you got to have an ability to identify, like I think that's what he's great at. He's like, cool, this is it. Everything in, like friends, I'm just like, fuck.
Yeah.
I want to get in on that shit. You know what I mean? But it's like, I just feel like I fucking hated him.
Yeah.
And that's the truth, right? Like up until about a year ago, I fucking hated him.
Really?
Because I was the type of guy, I never really got into his stuff, but I always just seen shit on Insta and I'm like, fuck this guy. Yeah. Like it's so broad. But then, you know what, man? Like that's something I've probably changed my mind on. And I think he's an absolute pioneer of business in general. He's just a genuinely fucking freakishly smart and driven dude. But
the other thing is, like, when you consume his so like a couple key things, like the self-awareness piece, like you don't have to get it from Gary Vee. There's so many people that discuss self-awareness or they wrap it in their own sort of marketing per se to trigger emotion within their audiences. But that self-awareness piece for me really rang from Gary Vee, calling it like a superpower. Like the better you get at understanding this, the better you get at everything, literally everything. But then also from like a content perspective, like if you're in the content space and creation space, like that whole idea of like documenting, like that's literally all it has to be.
Game changer.
It doesn't have to be anything else. Like we create these vlog YouTube videos, which are literally the four of us just training and talking smack to each other. Like it's like bullying. We called one of the videos workplace bullying. Like we're literally and it's exactly what the community is though. Like that's how it feels, and there's no other purpose other than to be like, this is a timestamp of what the fuck we're up to right now. But that idea came from Gary Vee, just being like, just document your processes. Like as it builds, as it grows, like just talk about it. People will listen, people will care. So there's a few things from Gary Vee specifically. I I'd go Mike Michalowicz, because The Profit First book changed my life. It really did. So from
he's just one, like, sorry to cut you off.
Right. I was just going to say, not from a mentoring perspective, but they're just people that have influenced me considerably to be to the point where it's like, even if I didn't have, again, the conversation or reading that book, I wouldn't be where I am. It deflected me completely into the right direction. Yeah.
He's just a guy. He just, he's great at simplifying.
Yeah.
He's got there's 3 or 4 frameworks that he has, and I'm just like, fuck, man, there's so much value to it.
So simple. So simple. They're probably the ones that are off the top of my head currently.
Yeah. All right. So what advice do you have for people who might currently be experiencing a plateau in their business?
Try your best to macro scale, or macro view, probably a better word on a podcast, macro view what you're encountering, what got you to the point you're at, and think a little deeper than just being like, try and think a little bit deeper to the points that gave you that direction. Like thinking back, like if there was something that happened 6 months ago that pushed you in a direction and that created some growth, like what was the pivotal moment there? If there was like a relationship or a mentor or a conversation or something that gave you those initial growth periods, try and work out what created those. So like view in the past a little bit from a macro perspective, view the situation for what it is. Like, why are we in our industry? I think a lot of people, I think they don't focus enough on retention strategies, like actually building an environment that people want to stay in.
The product.
Yeah, the experience in and of itself, and they get caught up with, we're not growing, I need to dump more effort into marketing. Well, it's probably not. It's what can you make the current 20 people that you've got not leave.
Plug the hole.
Yeah, stop them leaving and you'll probably go a lot faster. So like viewing sort of why you're plateaued again, but it's built off self-awareness and yeah. And then the other thing would be, I would say, mentors. Mentor conversations are the only thing that's probably going to drive you and the conversation could be a book, the conversation could be a podcast, the conversation could be an Instagram DM, the conversation could just be observing the strategies of other people around you and actually analyzing it objectively, not just being like, oh, fuck, they're really good. Like, oh, actually being like, what are they actually doing? Like,
that's a fucking massive
they're not
one.
competitors. They're literally just other people in the same stream that are seeing success. Like, you can learn from them. They can be your mentors without even speaking to them. I think that would be the next thing, yeah.
There's guys I do, there's people I talk to, right? And I don't directly go to them for advice, but when I'm in a hole, I'm like, I'll just fucking flick a message out, right? Or I'll have a chat to them. And it's like, they just give you so much perspective without necessarily having...
It's organic.
It's not that mentor conversation, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what people need more of that. They need to be able to... You need to have a network. Network is, in my opinion, the most important thing. Like it's what drives all growth on an individual level, a business level, everything. The network of people that you involve yourself in, or the networks, is the absolute key to growth, period, in life. So I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. That would be my... Yeah.
Cool. So what do you think the biggest opportunity of 2022 is?
Investing in crypto. I still don't understand it, but I'm just like last year, share market. If you had some balls last year, you could have had some cash.
Was it? Oh, what did?
You got me on PointsBet.
Yeah, that was fucking good fun.
That was a good one.
Yes, that was a great. I remember the day you messaged me about it too. Yeah,
I sent you a couple like 6 months down the track. I'll just send you a screenshot or whatever. Last year was definitely the stock market. I just see crypto. Yeah,
it's fucking.
I've got to understand it more. I really do. I need to.
What about from a business perspective?
From a business perspective, yeah, that was a bit of a funny one. From a business perspective, you can't go past content. I feel like if
you can nail it.
Yeah, and it's definitely my bias because it's the only thing that's sort of built our brand to how we've managed to so far. Not saying that we've nailed it in any stretch of the imagination, but I'm biased to content. I really do enjoy it. I love consuming it. I love watching YouTube videos. There's certain people that I just enjoy watching their development, and I just know that there'd be people out there that enjoy watching our development. So for us, it's definitely content is going to be the next big push for us for 2022. In terms of like a business industry perspective for strength and conditioning, health and fitness sort of stuff, I think the online space is just going to continue to move. Apps are starting to become cheaper to develop, and you can almost customize like templates that you can use. I see a lot of benefit or potential in that space. But I think just the online space is just going to continue to go and go and go.
Yeah, I mean it's here, right? And it's like the next evolution of that is going to be the interesting thing. I think it's like, online was like. Online previously was information. It was like you could host information, right? So if you're an online coach, you can kind of build a community around social media, and you can host information. Which what I mean is like you can write a program, and that's online coaching, right? But it's like I think the next thing is the monetization of culture,
online community,
and just how that amplifies, and that's where I think blockchain comes in. Like genuinely think NFTs and social tokens, what we're seeing now is just the very first. But basically, I look at that space and go, that is NFTs and social tokens are basically how we put a tangible value on brand and culture, and because it's all around identity. Like everyone's in the NFT space right now trying to fucking flip NFTs, and I did it. Yeah. I was like, how can I get in this? Which ones am I going to buy that are going to make me the most money? And what you realize is it's luck of the draw.
Gambling. Yeah.
But what it is really is the best way to go about it is to actually invest in ones that you actually want to use. So
well, it's the same with stocks. Like at the end of the day, like the classic thing, like read up on the companies, find their directions, like find the communities that drive them, their customer base, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, but it's even more like what do I actually enjoy? Because it's not. I look at NFTs not necessarily as an investment, but it's like a car. Right? So like if I'm buying a car, it's like, do I buy the car because I can drive the thing? Or do I pick the car that best represents the community I want to join? Do you know what I mean? Like if I'm buying because all cars drive, but if I drive a Tesla, I'm probably futuristic, and I probably want to get involved in that community. And I think that's what NFTs are. I think, we're just kind of in this bubble at the moment where it's all happening, but I look at it like that and I go, okay, cool, like it's a great way to build brand, right? Because like an NFT is just something that's not fungible, right? So it's like a dollar of currency is fungible. It's something that there's many of them, they're all the same. Yep. And NFT is something that has it's unique in a sense. So there's only going to be one type of that thing, which is what we're seeing, but it represents something greater in a community. So I think, I'm looking forward to that from a community perspective, which I think content's a big part of that. I think it all kind of connects. I'm not sure how yet, but it's
definitely
coming.
Does. Like you see these pump and dumps from like YouTube fucking idiots, but I think that's just the first sort of
iteration.
It's the first iteration of how a person, well in their case a personal brand, but how a brand could create value for a community. It's just unfortunate that
has to go through this phase.
Yeah, exactly. So it will spin on itself and evolve and adapt over probably the next 12. It's accelerating so far, so probably even the next 6 months. It will be interesting. And again, it's something that I do want to learn more in. I won't sit here and act like I know anything about it.
To be honest, I don't think anyone does. Like it's like I can probably talk pretty confidently about it, but put me in the arena and I'll probably fuck it up.
Yeah.
What advice, last question, what advice would you give someone starting a business, knowing what you know?
Profit first, read it, absorb it, apply it. Find people that are ahead of where, like it's the fucking stock answers that I'm sure everyone's heard a million times, but you got to action. So I'm going to rephrase it. Action the things that people are telling you. If you respect their opinion, and you and you actually believe that they are in a position you want to be, or they have potential to help you or whatever, action the fucking item. Like, actually do it. If someone tells you to go and do a business budgeting expense spreadsheet, go and do it. Work it out. Work out where your money's leaking. Where is it going? How can you manage that? How can you plug it? How can you stop it so you can reinvest? Like, actually doing the steps. Do the steps. That would be the one thing. Because it's really easy, and I think there's a lot of people, and again, it's just my industry is the only one I can speak of, but a lot of where people that have so much potential go wrong is they just don't do the things they know they should do. Like, ultimately, that's it. Everyone knows how to lose weight, but it's actually just doing the process of either tracking calories or managing fruit intake or vegetable intake or protein intake or whatever. It's just the doing is the outcome. So yeah, do all the things that everyone's telling you to do would be what I would say.
Very easy to get caught in consumption mode, right? It's like, it's very easy to go around just consuming so much information and then not actually spending time actioning.
Yeah.
I got caught in this loop probably 6 months ago. I was just learning so fucking much, but I was spending all my time learning. So now it's like, I just literally, my first fucking 3 hours of the day is making sure that I'm not just learning now. It's like I'm actually doing the shit that I need to do to take that next step. So I think it's definitely a great point.
Yeah.
That's it.
Crazy.
Amazing.
Loved it. Loved it and love you.
A lot of value. A lot of value in that, man. And I'm really appreciative for you coming on.
Thanks for having me.
I think from a business perspective, you've got a lot to offer and add, and that comes from what you've built, right? And the experiences you have and your ability to do it in an effective manner. So I think really appreciative for you coming on the potty, man. Johnny Boy, Disco, appreciative for you, my brother. Thanks for putting this together and making sure that I don't fuck it up.
My pleasure.
What we'll finish on is, where can everyone find you? Obviously you've got an amazing facility, and you're doing quite a bit. So where can everyone find you?
Yeah, just Melbourne Strength Culture is probably your best bet on wherever, Google, Instagram, YouTube, if you want to see the cool content that we can
Get
create.
on the tube, it's
YouTube.
good.
The YouTube's probably where I would send if you want to actually see what we're about. For myself personally, just J Smith Culture, because my name is Jamie Smith and it's been absolutely chewed up by every handle, email, you name it, it's gone. So J Smith Culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was actually pretty like I thought I would get Kyle Trainer really easily. No. Someone else
Mate,
out there.
I've never got anything easily, ever.
Oh yeah, I got TikTok fucking good though. Like,
Yeah.
TikTok, we got the name we wanted. So I'm stoked about that.
That's all that matters. TikTok's the future.
It is the future.
TikTok and crypto.
Who would have thought? If you had said that to me 12 months ago, I would have told you go fuck yourself.
It's actually fucked.
Good times. All right, brother. Thanks heaps for coming on the potty.
Thank you very much.
For all the listeners, I say this a lot, but super grateful for you guys too. The messages you send, of the progress you're making from just everything that we're putting together is great. So super appreciative of you guys, and super appreciative for yourself again, and yourself, Johnny, as well. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode, and we'll see you next week. Hey guys, so as we end today's podcast, I wanted to say a massive thank you to you. You've made it to the end, so you've tuned into the whole episode, which is something that we're extremely grateful for. If you're new to the podcast, hitting the subscribe button is really, really important to us because it really helps us out a lot. The more subscribers we get, the more, the bigger the community we build, the more that we can progress with our vision, and the more that we can start to expand and keep having, these amazing conversations. So we're really thankful. And one thing that we're also really thankful for, which, has been a big driver for me personally with the podcast, is just the messages that we get on the Instagram. I still go through the Instagram and like to have conversations with people that are engaging with us. It means so much, and it's great to hear the stories of people progressing and learning and how we're impacting you, the listener. So that's something we're really appreciative of. And I actually want to go through and actually mention some people who we had some great conversations with on our social media. For these people reached out. So Alicia Pyers, it was great chatting with you, and I'm super appreciative for you reaching out to the Instagram. And it's great to hear your story and what's inspiring you and the changes that you're making. And also Jess Dinning. Jess was lucky enough to talk to you last week, and that was really, really amazing. And just the same thing goes. The conversations that we have with you guys, it's crazy how much of an impact it makes on us as a company and what we're striving to do. So a massive thank you to you two and everybody else who's reaching out and sharing and doing those things. But the two things that you can do that will help us the most is make sure that you're subscribed, and a big thanks to everyone who's leaving reviews as well, because that shows people that this is a safe space for them to come and listen and learn, and that's really the most important things to us. Really hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and we will see you next week.